It'd be nice to finish on some kind of personal outlook on 2010. So 2009 has been a very difficult year to be a biotech company. Francesco, you represent a number of portfolio biotech companies. What's the sentiment like now, and what's the outlook like for next year from the biotech perspective and also from VCs?
Yeah, so from clearly from a biotech perspective standpoint, there are two things which sort of give some reason for hope, right? So first of all, the capital markets, which are not there, but clearly seem to be more permissive than they were sometime before. But the most important thing is that it looks like the positioning of the biotechnology industry, the producer of drugs, the drug hunters, is really as strong as it has ever been in front of the pharmaceutical industry, which is really the entity that has to take those drugs and bring them to the patient. So there is that interface for which the biotech companies, the ones which of course are good and have real molecules, are well positioned. So that kind of presence, the pharmaceutical company's presence, is a very reassuring presence. So that is clearly one good thing. And in turn, for the venture capital, as a venture capitalist, very clearly, we are focusing our attentions on mode of actions which have been validated, or which, from a scientific standpoint, which are being validated, so that we really focus on identifying molecules in that space. And on the other front, on disruptive new technologies, but those don't come every 6 months or 12 months. So probably, I would predict that in terms of our investment focus, we will do a number of disruptive companies in terms of technology platforms over the next few years, but a bigger number of single molecule companies, at the preclinical stage. That would be really our investment focus.
Dimitri, 30 year next year. Same.
I think next year should be a good year. I hope for everybody, hope for the economy. It looks like things are turning. If you look at the hike in the stock market since March, it's enormous. No analyst had predicted it. It's like 50% up in 6 months. I don't know if it's going to be sustained or not. An analyst, actually, even if it was, I wouldn't be able to predict it. But what I remember is that back in '87 there was a huge crash, and then in '92 and '93 there was a boom again, and then I remember in '95, '96 there was another crash, and then in 2000 exactly was the biggest boom before the last one. And then 2001, 2 there was a crash. 2004, 5 I remember I was speaking to conferences, I was saying everybody's depressed, the companies are running out of money. And then 2007 it was the biggest boom ever. And then in August 2007 it started crashing again. So now it looks like it's 2 years, so logically it should go up again. But I agree with Francesco's point that specifically on the biotech side, big pharma is very different. But on the biotech side, you depend on two things. You depend on the capital markets if you're public to raise monies. And right now it's still very difficult. It's been impossible for the last 2 years. Almost. On the non-raising, if you want, money side, what you're really looking forward is to do a deal with another partner, and that partner typically is another pharma company. And these companies have been, if you want, I don't want to say completely immune from the stock market crash, but they are still there. They're very active in terms of partnering and looking for opportunities. So your target is not really the stock market so much. It's basically helping to progress some collaboration. But on the big pharma side, I see no reason why companies should not do better than they did last year. With a caveat that I don't think there's a huge upside in big pharmas like it is in some of the other companies which took a pounding a few years ago, because big pharma has been defensive, typically. So pharma stocks are seen as defensive. So I think 2009 should be a good year for everyone.
Right, I think biotech.
So 2010.
Yeah. No, and I was an analyst, so I can attest to the cycle, which is a sort of a 4-year cycle, boom to boom. So you certainly have seen that in the biotech over the last couple of decades. But in terms of biotech, it's clearly got to improve. I think in the US you can clearly see the signs now. You're seeing a large number of secondary offerings going on, and they're essential because the industry is absolutely dependent on funding from the equity markets. Whatever you'd like to think that the pharma companies are not able to be the only source of funding for listed companies. We have to continue to tap the equity markets. Unfortunately, in Europe, we are certainly behind the US, and I think the gap is probably more than many companies would like it to be. There has been basically a famine for fundraisings in listed UK and European biotech companies since mid-2007. So even if 2010 things start to open up, many companies have got very, very little resource at the moment, and probably are burning, subcritical in terms of the activities that are going on. We haven't heard of much much happening in these companies in terms of cuts, but I bet you there is a lot of downsizing in terms of the activities of those businesses, and so we're really dependent on the markets recovering. So keep your fingers crossed, but it can't be as bad as 2008-9.
Well, I'm saddened by what I'm now going to say, because I actually think it's going to get a lot worse. And I don't think any of us clearly have a true crystal ball here, but I mean, apart from the legitimacy of everything that's been offered by the other panelists in this critique, and I'm saddened because this is a time when I see as much innovative science as I've ever seen, and the opportunity is therefore great for companies large and small, but I think it is this macroeconomic issue. So irrespective of what the healthcare reform bill in the US does, I don't think we're really going to see the real impact of that, irrespective of what its final form is, still sort of mid-decade in terms of its overall impact on the industry. I mean, there will be a lot of, obviously, public commentary on it. Where my bearishness, unfortunately, comes from is the fact that I really don't think we've addressed much of the fundamentals that led to the macroeconomic collapse in 2007 and obviously intensified in 2008, and I think all the indicators are, well, at least for me, that we have a false bubble in the stock market today. You only have to look at credit card default ratio, you have to look at the fact that the commercial real estate overhang, particularly in the United States, is yet to be manifest, and we have still got to deal with what was the root cause of all of this. I mean, irrespective of throwing stones at bankers and hedge fund managers, the end product of their activities, namely the derivatized swap structures, are still sitting there as toxic assets which haven't yet been formally finalized. Then you throw into the brew definitive political instabilities courtesy of Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan, let alone where Israel will come out in that equation. I think this is very uncertain times. I wish I was more optimistic against that level, and who knows. But from a scientific standpoint, I think as always, it's a great pleasure to work in an environment where you just see so much creativity going on in both large and small companies. And as I've become more educated about diagnostics and computing, I see equivalent opportunity there, but I think, as in all things, it's going to be the macro climate that determines all.
On that partly sobering note, we'd like to thank you all very much for attending and participating in what's been a very interesting discussion. Dr. George Joyce, thank you very much. Max Herman, Dimitri and Francesco de Rubitis. And that concludes our discussion. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.